Welcome to the Redevelopment Agency meeting for September 14th, 2021. We are once again under guidelines for anyone in attendance in this room to properly wear a mask, whether they've received a vaccination or not. I encourage everyone to obtain accurate information on readily available vaccines that have been proven to be safe and effective so we can resume normal activities. Items listed on the agenda may be taken out of order. 2 or more agenda items for consideration may be combined, and any item on the agenda may be removed or related discussion may be delayed at any time. With that, I'll call the meeting to order. The agenda has been properly posted and all members of the agency are present for the meeting. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll open then with our first public comment period. Public comment for the meeting may have been submitted in advance via email. We will also provide for anyone wishing to call in during the public comment period. Public comment, the initial period is limited to matters for action on the agenda. Each person wishing to speak during public comment periods will have up to 5 minutes. We ask that you be civil and concise in your comments. Is there anyone in council chambers that wishes to speak in public comment? Ms. DeShane?
Judy DeShane. Would like to address item number 5 for 524 Nevada Way. Can't read with glasses. I was kind of surprised to see this come back before the council because it had been denied a couple of months, well, I guess 4 or 5 months back in April. And I'm wondering what kind of a precedent it sets for the a new council to override what a prior council voted on. And is this going to apply to everything that a prior council put in place that we now no longer want, or an individual doesn't want or didn't like? I'm thinking about the airport situation and the hangars. Now, I do not feel this really is a historic restoration. To my mind, the historic restoration would be something similar to what the company store did, where they put the building back to how it had been. And of course, at that time, we didn't have the $100,000, so the person that did that was required to pay a whole lot out of pocket. This particular one, according to the estimate that was in there, it was like $203,000 or something like that. Awarding $100,000 pays for half of that. And other businesses are not getting that kind of a break on renovations that they do. So I would ask you to please be very cautious about giving this one away. The other thing is, I couldn't find anything that said that a lesser amount could be awarded. And I would want you to consider that, because there may be other people that in the area that would like to do something, but with there only being $100 left until next July, this is the very close to the very beginning of our fiscal year, it puts them at a real disadvantage, and I just don't feel it's fair. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Anyone else present that would like to speak in public comment? All right, if anyone wishes to call in, the phone number is 702-589-9629. Again, this is the initial public comment period for the redevelopment agency meeting. The number is 702-589-9629. Again, this is the redevelopment agency meeting. We're in the initial public comment period. Anyone wishing to speak on an item on the agenda, the phone number is 702-589-9629. All right, hearing no one, we will close the initial public comment period again, unless, Madam City Clerk, there were any emails received.
No comments were received.
Thank you. We'll move to item number 1 for possible action, approval of minutes of the April 27th, 2021 RDA meeting. Anyone wishing to make a motion on the minutes?
I move to accept the minutes.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, that brings us to item number 2 for possible action, resolution number 231 regarding a property at 809 Nevada Way. Mr. Festection.
Good evening, Chairman and Agency Board members. Rafi Festection, the city's Economic Development Coordinator. The City of Boulder City's Redevelopment Agency has been established to assist businesses and property owners interested in projects aimed at revitalizing property within the redevelopment area boundary limits. It's a grant in which up to 30%, max of $99,900 of the total project costs of eligible improvements can be reimbursed. The Sands Motel Corporation, members Archie and Bipin Patel, are seeking RDA funding in order to make improvements to the Sands Motel. They purchased the 21-room motel 2 years ago. The members are proposing to invest $32,146 for eligible RDA improvements, painting the exterior of the motel, including painting the main sign and converting the existing non-functioning lower cabinet sign to LED. The motel paint color will be similar to the existing gray on white color, while the new paint on the signage is still to be determined, but might possibly be retro colors, such as teal, orange, or red. Last fiscal year, the board approved $1,050 in RDA funding for the painting of the historic Boulder City mural on the west side of the motel building. This project does not affect the mural in any way, as it will remain as we see it today. The Sands Motel Corp. would be eligible for up to 30% reimbursement of funds through the city's RDA grant program. Based on those eligible expenses, they could receive up to $9,644 in reimbursements. The RDA budget is $180,000 for this fiscal year. This is the first traditional RDA project of two tonight that has been brought forth for consideration. Members from the Sands Corporation could not be in attendance. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding their project in their absence. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Councilmember Adams?
Thank you. I did have a quick question, and it's unfortunate that the applicants aren't here regarding the neon sign that they're wanting to replace. So now I guess I'm just a little, so they're wanting to replace the lower cabinet. So if I'm looking at the sign, it's where the block lettering, I guess, would go. Is that what that is, or is it?
Correct.
Okay.
And according to the applicants, currently it's non-functioning.
Mm-hmm.
And they plan on changing, possibly even, I don't want to say kind of the flex face of it, but basically have it be operational and converting it to LED.
Yeah, I understand neon is unfortunately there's a maintenance issue and a cost issue that's involved with it. But of course, neon has some historic relevance here in Southern Nevada, and I know even within our codes, we even offer, I believe the city does offer a restoration program for signs specifically. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes. The applicant was aware that we have a grant, a 50-50 signage grant, that if they chose to have a retro look, that, she could gain an additional 20%, up to 20%, so a total of 50% if she decided to upgrade the sign.
And if they, because I would just strongly encourage them to reconsider that potential. That's my own personal opinion. If they were to, if we were to approve this RDA and they were not to make those changes to the sign, but then wanted to later maybe reconsider that other potential option, they would still have that opportunity.
I believe so.
Okay, those are all my questions for right now regarding that. Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone wishing to make a motion on resolution number 231?
I move to accept resolution number 231.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, we'll move to item number 3, resolution number 232, regarding property at 1100 Buchanan Boulevard.
Leslie Root, treasurer of Faith Christian Church, has applied and is seeking RDA funding for exterior improvements of the property. Faith Christian Church purchased the property from the Southwest Gas Company in 1996 and converted the building into a gym, worship center, and church facility. Faith Christian Church is located at 1100 Buchanan Boulevard near Adams Boulevard. The funding would assist in replacement of the 25-year-old cracked asphalt parking lot and installation of new wheel stops. It is estimated that these improvements will cost approximately $44,235. Faith Christian Church would be eligible up to 30% reimbursement of funds through this grant program. Based on the eligible expenses, they could receive up to $13,270 in reimbursement. If the agency approves this second application tonight, $157.86 would remain in this year's RDA budget for other eligible projects. Jerry Apel, a trustee of Faith Christian Church, is in attendance to answer any specific questions that you may have regarding this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions regarding resolution 232?
Just to clarify, I believe you said $157.86. It's $157,000.
Sorry, $157,000.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I just
$157,086. Thank you.
That's all I wanted to clarify.
Anyone else? Anyone wishing to make a motion on resolution 232?
Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 232.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, and item number 4, Resolution 233 has been removed from the agenda. That will then bring us to item number 5, Resolution 234 regarding property located at 524 Nevada Way. Before we get started on that, I do feel it's necessary to make the following statements. Based on the actions and behavior of the applicant Grant Turner at previous meetings, I find it necessary to inform Mr. Turner and others that disruptive or inappropriate behavior is not acceptable. Should such actions occur, it may result in removal from the meeting. Further, for Mr. Turner, you are advised that should you make any aggressive or threatening movements or statements towards any members of staff or others, you will be removed from the meeting. I also want to make it clear that I have no personal vendetta with regard to Mr. Turner. I want to assure Mr. Turner that I devote very little time thinking about this, thinking about him as a person. So there is no personal vendetta as may be alleged in the past regarding this. Mr. Festection, if you'd like to proceed.
TAP Water Management Group, members Larry and Grant Turner, have applied and are seeking RDA funding through the Historic Preservation Grant Program in order to make improvements to their property located at 524 Nevada Way, formerly known as Back in Time Antiques. The owners plan to operate a new business and convert the location to a tavern and live music venue. The Redevelopment Agency reviewed the first application on April 27. After review, the agency denied the application with a vote of 3-2. The guidelines do not prohibit reconsideration of a denied application. The applicants have submitted a new grant request, but the plans have not changed. Any RDA historic preservation application must first be presented to the Historic Preservation Committee for recommendation. At the HPC's August 25th meeting, the committee unanimously recommended approval of the second grant application subject to compliance with the SOI standards for eligible improvements. The city's historic preservation consultant from Northwind Resource Consulting, Courtney Mooney, provided a determination regarding proposed work to be completed as part of the RDA Historic Preservation Grant Program application process. This is contained in the packet. Ms. Mooney reviewed the activity analysis worksheet and has identified $203,343 in eligible improvements. This is the first historic RDA grant application that is being considered this fiscal year. The RDA Historic Preservation budget is $100,000. Tap Water Management Group would be eligible for up to 50% reimbursements through this grant program. Based on eligible expenses for the project, they could receive up to the max grant amount of $99,900 in reimbursements, utilizing nearly the entire budget amount for this fiscal year. The applicants understand that any eligible activities may not begin until RDA agency approval. In addition, the applicants also understand that they are responsible for the continued maintenance and needed future repairs for any items the agency approves for a period of 10 years in order to preserve the historical qualities of the building. A total of 3 bids were submitted per NRS requirements. Newcastle Construction and Remodeling is owned and operated by one of the applicants. The city's RDA grant award is awarded based on the lowest bid amount and does not preclude the applicant from applying. Larry and Grant Turner are in attendance to answer any specific questions that you may have, as well as myself regarding this project. Thank you.
Thank you. This application was previously submitted to the RDA board and denied in April of this year, as you've indicated. The application is being resubmitted without any changes or amendments from that time. The applicant has made no changes in responses to the reasons the application was previously denied. The purpose of this grant that is being applied for is to promote the preservation, rehabilitation, and restoring historically significant properties in Boulder City. The Secretary of Interior Standards defines preservation as the act or process of applying measures necessary to sustain the existing form, integrity, and materials of an historic property. Work including preliminary measures to protect and stabilize the property generally focuses upon the ongoing maintenance and repair of historic materials and features rather than extensive replacement and new construction. The limited and sensitive upgrading of mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems and other code-required work to make properties functional is appropriate within a preservation project. However, new exterior additions are not within the scope of this treatment. The standards for preservation requires retention of the greatest amount of historic fabric along with the building's historic form. This project includes significant new exterior additions and are not within the scope of preservation definition. Rehabilitation is defined in the Secretary of Interior Standards as the act or process of making possible a compatible use for a property through repair, alterations, and additions while preserving those portions or features which convey its historical, cultural, or architectural values. The rehabilitation standards acknowledge the need to alter or add to a historic building to meet continuing or new uses while retaining the building's historic character. This project does not preserve portions or features which convey its historical, cultural, or architectural values. Restoration is defined in the Secretary of Interior Standards as the act or process of accurately depicting form, features, and character of a property as it appeared at a particular period of time by means of the removal of features from other periods in its history and reconstruction of missing features from the restoration period. The limited and sensitive upgrading of mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems and other code-required work to make properties functional is appropriate within a restoration project. The restoration standards allow for the depiction of a building at a particular time in its history by preserving materials, features, finishes, and spaces from its period of significance and removing those from other periods. This project does not attempt to depict the form, features, and character of a property as it appeared at a particular period of time by means of the removal of features from other periods in its history and construction. Northwind Resources Consulting was retained to provide a professional evaluation of the project proposal. The summary of the evaluation from Northwind is as follows. Thank you for considering Northwind for this interesting project. Northwind finds that the proposed work to the east facade, including the removal, relocation, and replacement of the front entrance with a recessed front entrance on the far north side of the facade, radically changes, obscures, or destroys character-defining features and historic materials and therefore does not meet the standards. Northwind understands the challenges presented by the existing sidewalk slope and building floor and that the current condition is necessary to meet ADA requirements. Northwind does not have a recommendation for mitigation of effects. Northwind Consulting concludes that the project destroys character-defining features and historic materials and therefore does not meet the standards. To further quote from the Secretary of Interior Standards regarding code and other regulations, regardless of the treatment, regulatory requirements must be addressed. But without a sensitive design approach, such work may damage a building's historic materials and negatively impact its character. Therefore, because the ultimate use of the building determines what requirements have to be met, some potential uses of a historic building may not be appropriate if the necessary modifications would not preserve the building's historic character. This includes adaptations to address natural hazards as well as sustainability. The Northwind Consulting evaluation notes that some changes are required by regulatory needs for the proposed project based on the use the applicant has chosen. The project the applicant has chosen is requiring the significant changes proposed. That use is not compatible with the Secretary of Interior standards as noted in the statement. Some potential use of the building may not be appropriate if the necessary modifications would not preserve the building's historic character. The intent of this grant being applied for is to promote preservation, rehabilitation, and restoring historically significant properties in Boulder City. This project does not do that because of the project the applicant has chosen. Codes and regulations do not wipe away the required Secretary of Interior guidelines for historic preservation when the changes that are proposed destroy the character-defining features and historic materials and therefore does not meet the standards. The project continues to fail to meet the requirements of the Historic Preservation Grant Program. Questions or comments from other members of the board? Member Jorgensen?
Thank you. So if I'm to understand right, the changes that are requested are because of the requirements for American Disability Act?
Correct.
Okay.
ADA.
So regardless of what went into that building, we would be looking at needing to change that, right? Because
Correct.
whoever purchases that property will no longer be grandfathered in and will have to make that ADA.
Depending on the type of use, yes, it has to change
It has to change.
for ADA compliance.
Okay. And do I also understand from you that this has gone before the Historic Preservation Committee and passed unanimously?
The recommendation,
The
yes.
recommendation. So they've looked at all this also.
They have looked at this,
And there was an outside consultant that also looked at this.
correct?
And what was their recommendation or their thoughts?
It's in the packet, it's quite lengthy. I don't want to summarize.
But overall,
There were things that if we focus on the analysis worksheet, we've listed by items those things that are eligible and then those things that are not eligible from her vantage point.
Okay. And so it's gone through
So
your...
for example, the historic Stagecoach bar, even though it's in the sheet, is not eligible. She's marked it as ineligible.
Ineligible. Okay. So it's gone through your process, gone through the Historic Preservation Committee, and is here now.
Yeah, our process is
recommendation.
from a staff vantage point, we just look at the eligibility criteria, which we believe was met. It's pretty much is the property located in the RDA district as well as the historic district? Was the property owner the grant applicant? And is the construction, must comply with the Secretary of Interior standards?
And that's our criteria.
Yeah,
And it's
as
been
far
met.
as bringing it forward.
Okay. Thank you so much.
I would like to note that Northwind did not say that ADA requirements justified the changes that were being made. This still gets back to the purpose of the project that the applicant has selected as far as what accommodations need to be made for ADA. Is that correct?
She did mention saying, I believe that ADA, trumps historic, ADA takes precedence in regards to historic preservation.
Well, let me read this again
Okay.
then.
Yeah,
This is the Secretary of Interior standards regarding code and other regulations. Regardless of the treatment, regulatory requirements must be addressed. But without a sensitive design approach, such work may damage a building's historic materials and negatively impact its character. Therefore, because the ultimate use of the building determines what requirements will have to be met, some potential uses of a historic building may not be appropriate if the necessary modifications would not preserve the building's historic character. This includes adaptations to address natural hazards as well as sustainability. That is the SOI, the guidelines from the Secretary of Interior. So what they're saying is that some things are not preservation efforts if the project, if the adaptation is inappropriate for the building. And I'm not asking you for your opinion, that's my opinion. I believe that's in black and white here. Member Bridges?
Yes, thank you very much. First of all, I'm glad you brought this back. I felt that an incredible amount of diligence was done in the preparation of the initial presentation. It has passed unanimously through the Historic Preservation Committee. It has passed through community development. That there were questions previously about parts of the project that were ineligible. And it's interesting, I was, hold on, I want to get back to my first page. I think we should encourage this type of diligence, which you did twice, and which may encourage others to take the time and provide the documentation. And I feel very strongly about that because I believe that you own the building, you could do what you wish for the building, and what you wish to do for the building is the right thing. And with or without the grant, in order to make the renovations you want to make, this is a way you're trying to do it and do it the right way. And that's what I said the first time around, and that's what I say this time around. I've heard the word precedence of someone bringing something back twice. I also think to the other extreme, we set a precedence if the first person that's applying for this grant is denied that grant after going through what looks like about a year's worth of work. So I'm in support of this, and that's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Thank you. I do want to clear up one thing that I received a message from the person on the Historic Preservation Committee today who had made the motion and wanted to clarify that in no way was that motion intended to approve this project. I just want to make that clear that that's information that I received earlier today. I also want to make clear once again that the reason for this grant is to promote preservation. It is not an economic development grant. It is for preservation, rehabilitation, and restoring. There are features of this project that the Northwind Consulting Company has stated are unnecessary and destroy the historic significance of the building. Those are not being addressed. Anyone else wishing to comment? Member Adams.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I'll be honest. I'm very torn on this because, on the one hand, at the end of the day, if we approve this application, we will have depleted the entirety of the fund for the historic preservation grant for a project that, according to the consultant, will, as has been said, radically change, obscure, or destroy character-defining features and historic materials. So, in my opinion, the only reason to consider approval for the grant is if the applicant is at least willing to make concessions that try and retain as much of the historic integrity as possible. Unfortunately, the plan before us today is identical to the plan that has been before us before. There's been they've not included any consideration of the requests that have been made prior to this. By both the Historic Preservation Committee and Northwind Resource Consulting. For reference, these were the conditions that I found when I was going back and rewatching all of these videos again. Those conditions included that the parapet not be raised or altered, that the windows be a clear pane and not glazed, and that the windows not be obstructed from the exterior of the building, that the stucco arches be maintained and not altered, and that the door installed be made of matching material and similar in design to that of the door being replaced. So I guess my question to the applicant would be, are you still amenable to these conditions that were made, recommendations that were made by the Historic Preservation Committee originally and by the Northwind Consulting firm?
Larry Turner. Yeah, we're on the record, we said we would not raise the parapet. We've all agreed that that door is not the original door, but if you want a door of similar design, we can do that. And I think we said we don't mind the clear glass, but we do need some backing because it backs up to a stage. But I think we've agreed to everything you asked for.
Yeah, as long as the obstruction is from the interior of the building
Yes.
and not from the exterior.
Yeah, we previously agreed to all of those.
Which is great. I just, unfortunately, what was provided to us before doesn't include any of that. And so if we were to just, say, okay, let's go ahead with this, none of those considerations
Well,
would
we've
be
been
in
on the record several times saying that,
Okay.
that we're amenable.
Then I would ask that any motion that be made also include those conditions to be met.
Thank you. Anyone else? I would just again like to say that this grant was something that I pushed to get enacted for the specific purpose of promoting historic preservation, especially in our uptown area. This project does not do that. That is clear. And attempting to wipe away the requirements that are for this grant by substituting ADA requirements is simply misusing what the intent of those ADA requirements is all about. The applicant has the ability to choose the project that they wish, but if that project destroys the historic significance of the architecture of the building, which the consulting company made very clear is what will occur here, that is on them. That is the project they chose. If they choose a different use of the building, then we would not be having these discussions. Anyone wishing to make a motion?
Yes, I would like to make a motion to accept resolution number 2334. However, I would like to add to that motion the amendments that Member Adams presented. Could you read those 5 again, please?
Yes, that was that the parapet not be raised or altered, that the windows be a clear pane and not glazed, that the windows not be obstructed from the exterior of the building, that the stucco arches be maintained and not altered, and that the door installed be made of matching material and similar in design to that of the door being replaced.
Yes, I accept that amendment to the resolution.
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I vote nay. Thank you, Mr. Fisection. That brings us to item number 6, resolution number 235. Madam City Clerk, did you want to address that?
Resolution number 235 is a resolution accepting written disclosures of redevelopment agency board members of property they own or have a direct or indirect financial interest that lie within the RDA boundaries. This is a requirement of NRS 279.4541, and included are disclosures that are required for new board officers Matt Fox and Sherry Jorgensen, Executive Director Taylor Tedder, Legal Counsel Brittany Walker, and Secretary Tammy McKay. And all other board members have previously submitted their disclosures, which were entered into the record and included in the agenda packet.
Thank you. Any questions regarding resolution number 235? Does that then bring all members up to the current NRS standard?
That's correct.
All right. I'll make a motion then to approve resolution number 235.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Item number 7, our final public comment period. Public comment during this period of time is limited to 5 minutes, but may be on any topic. Anyone wishing to speak during this period in chambers, please come forward. Yes, Ms. DeShane?
Judy DeShane. I would like to see the council go through and make some changes to this particular thing. There won't be another one this year because there's no money. But I think we need to have some limitations and a clearer understanding of what qualifies and what doesn't. I was surprised when the mayor read the north winds saying, some of this is only because that's what the owner wants to do with it, but it does not make it historical. And I say I think this was an abuse of the process, and so we need some refinements in whatever is in that historic RDA grant. This was just atrocious to me, and when this historic grant for $100,000 was first proposed, I argued against it only because I expected something like this to happen. Somebody would come in, get the entire grant for the year, and nothing happens on it. As well as there weren't enough specifics in there to make sure it was actually a historical restoration or refurbishment. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in chambers wishing to speak during the final public comment period? All right, we will accept any calls. Phone number is 702-589-9629. Again, this is the final public comment period for the redevelopment agency meeting. Anyone wishing to speak may call 702-589-9629. This is the final public comment period for the redevelopment agency meeting. Anyone wishing to speak, the phone number is 702-589-9629. Madam City Clerk, were there any emailed comments for this meeting?
No comments.
Thank you. Hearing no others, then, we will close the final public comment period and adjourn the meeting of the redevelopment agency. Thank you all.